Communities are built on interconnectedness. These layers of connections don't just happen. They are shaped, nurtured, and woven together to create a sustainable and resilient community. And while resiliency looks different for each individual, woven within all of us is a common thread: the capacity to come together, adapt, and support each other in overcoming adversity. By stitching our common threads together, we transform our shared struggles into our collective strength, the ability to create purposeful change. This is when I becomes we, and connections are formed, neighbors are welcomed, and lives are improved. While single threads might fray and break, many sewn together form the enduring fabric of a thriving community, one that will hold strong in the face of future challenges. What we create today shapes our tomorrow. Together, we are weaving a strong community.
Good morning. I'm Roxanne Kerr-Lindsay, Vice President with CBiz and UCS Board President. On behalf of UCS, I'm pleased to welcome you to our annual meeting and Human Service Awards presentation. Thank you for joining us virtually again this year and celebrating the mission of UCS. Although we're not together in person for our normal breakfast event, I hope you're still able to join us this morning with a good cup of coffee and some breakfast. And please do catch up with friends and colleagues through our chat feature today. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment and recognize our state, county, and city elected officials, Board of Regents and school board members who have joined us online this morning. Each of you play such a key role in addressing health and human service and educational needs of our residents through the policies you set and oversee. Thank you for your public service. Additionally, I'd like to thank administrative staff in our county and cities, public safety professionals, and our educational institutions that have continued to carry an incredible load this year as we work our way to full recovery from the pandemic. Thank you for your leadership and dedication. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our health and human service organizations, both public and private, and faith communities, many of whom are with us this morning. Your work and dedication have never been more needed than during the time of pandemic response and recovery. All of you are a part of the fabric of our community. UCS is honored to partner with you as we all work to weave a stronger community. We encourage everyone online with us this morning to share their thanks with one another in the Zoom chat. The highlight of our annual meeting is the Human Service Awards. UCS has been recognizing individuals and organizations that make a difference in our community for almost 55 years. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our past honorees, several of whom are online with us today, as they hold a special place in our community's heart. Their names are on the screen, and I ask that you join me in thanking them for their lasting contribution to weaving a better tomorrow. Please feel free to share your thanks and comments for these past recipients in the chat. Weaving a strong community is the theme of today's event, recognizing we are all the threads that make up a strong and resilient community. Our connectedness is our strength. Building, nurturing, and growing our connections with each other and within the community has been challenged in recent years. This morning, we'd like to take time to reset and refocus on the important role we all play in weaving a strong community. The very foundation of UCS is built on this belief. UCS is built on the principle that all of us together, all community sectors, play an important role in creating a healthy community. UCS vision is that through research, education, advocacy, resource allocation, and thoughtful planning and collaboration, together we can impact and improve the well-being of our community's most vital resource, its people. The work of UCS could not be done without our funders. Major supporters of our year-round work include United Way of Greater Kansas City, Johnson County Government, and the partnership of the county and cities who support the Human Service Fund, the Alcohol Tax Fund, and over the last few years, the Housing Study and Task Force work. In addition to our core funding, UCS relies on grants, business, and individuals giving. Key grant partners this year have included the REACH Healthcare Foundation, Kansas Health Foundation, and Health Forward Foundation. I'd like to give a special thank you to today's annual meeting supporters. Please join me in thanking all of our supporters. UCS has a great staff team that is governed by our board of directors with guidance from our council of advisors. Thank you all for your service. With the end of this year, we say goodbye to 4 UCS board members who are completing their service: Kate Allen, Tara Eberlein, Donna Laufer, and Kevin Tubison. Your leadership and support have helped guide this organization over the last 6 years. Thank you so much. I would like to say a welcome to our new board members, officers, and Council of Advisor members for 2022. Your program provides a list and background of our new members and officers. Our 2022 new UCS board members include Dr. Janet Barrow, Director of Human Resources and Administration, Chief Human Resource Officer of Water One; Stephen Kyle, Shareholder and CEO, Siegfried Bingham; Mayor Eric Mickelson with the City of Prairie Village; David Brown, Public Safety Segment Advisor, T-Mobile. Now I would like to invite Patty Markley, Chair of our Public Policy Committee, to the podium to present UCS 2022 Public Policy Platform.
Thank you, Roxanne. As we know, public policy at the local, state, and national level shapes and determines the availability of programs and services that protect, support, and promote the well-being of individuals and families. Through our public policy platform, UCS advocates for policies and positions that invest in our most vital resource, our residents. UCS's 2022 Public Policy Platform is included in the annual meeting program you received in advance of today's event. UCS supports health equity for all Kansans through public policy advocacy, recognizing that everyone should have a fair and just opportunity to be as healthy as possible. This requires intentionally addressing health disparities such as poverty, discrimination, and their consequences. Institutional racism is taking a toll on our communities of color. Health equity requires that we remove institutional obstacles to health, like disparities in access to housing, education, employment, and health services. Our priority positions include support economic stability through advancing wage, housing, employment, taxation, health, and business retention and growth policies that support citizens' ability to improve economic stability, move towards self-sufficiency, and address wealth disparities resulting from inequity in policy. Eliminating the food sales tax is an example of economic stability policy supported by UCS. Support a redistricting process that utilizes data to draw district lines in a way that is equitable, fair, and reflective of citizenry and sensitive to diversity. Increasing access to health care by expanding Medicaid eligibility. Too many Kansans are being left behind in access to quality, affordable health coverage necessary for a healthy and ready workforce. Also, the pandemic has shone a bright light on our nation's child care crisis. We know millions of women have not been able to rejoin the workforce due to lack of available, affordable child care. Child care solutions are needed to support a ready and able workforce. 2019 data shows that Johnson County's 71% of children 0 to 5 years of age have both parents in the workforce. And with special focus, UCS's policy platform and much of our organization's current work is centered on supporting policies that promote attainable and sustainable housing choices for residents. UCS hosted its annual Kansas Public Policy Forum last month. We appreciate our speakers and panelists who joined us this year to discuss policy issues outlined in our platform. We are thankful for everyone's support and participation in this event. It is up to all of us to work together for solutions.
Resilience in and of itself, I think, to me, connotes strength and courage, and oftentimes doing something that is very difficult and complex.
It means using your obstacles as platforms for creating new opportunities and making better long-term sustainable decisions. Building resiliency as a community competency allows us to live into our potential and bring everyone alongside one another to support a diverse group of people, striving to make our community a better place for all.
Picking yourself up, even if for the fourth, fifth, sixth time, as a person, as a city, as a community, as a county, and continuing to move forward, not losing track of your values.
It's critical that we build systems so that people face adversity from a place of strength with resources and support to meet and overcome the challenges that they're facing. We've really seen through the COVID-19 pandemic that when people are already vulnerable, economically, socially, or already in poor health, they're less able to meet the challenges before them.
Ultimately, this not only is improving the quality of life, it's building equity for our residents, our businesses, and for all of our community stakeholders.
Even though we are meeting virtually this year, as you can see, we wanted to find ways to lift up the many voices that help us weave a strong community. You will be hearing from more community members throughout this morning's event. Now I'd like to get all of you joining us this morning actively engaged in the program. Yep, even though you're not in person, I still want to find ways for us to connect this morning. You are all a part of the fabric that makes up UCS. As I share some of the UCS highlights from 2021, I'll be testing your knowledge on key issues many of you have partnered with us on this year. Let's start off with safe, stable, and attainable housing. This has been a really big community lift for our county, cities, the multi-sector Johnson County Health Equity Network, and UCS. This year we saw the publication of the Johnson County Municipalities Housing Study, and thanks to our Housing for All task force, comprised of more than 100 community members, we also released the Housing Toolkit. So first, audience question, get ready. According to the Community Housing Study, what % of respondents felt townhouses or duplexes would be a successful housing project within Johnson County? Your options: A, 43%, B, 61%, C, 72%, or D, 65%. I'll give you a moment to answer. Those of you who chose C, 72%, you would be correct. So as we can see, the majority of our respondents felt focusing on some of our lower density multifamily opportunities would be a great response to needs within our community when it comes to housing. The Housing Study and Task Force work really helped us understand some of the missing middle of housing needs within our county and individual cities. We need to think of all the different stages of housing residents need throughout their lives and ask if our communities are really meeting that need. So another question for you. What do you think is the biggest unmet housing need residents identified responding to the survey? Housing for young couples without children? Workers making below $16 an hour? Single professionals? Or households needing to be near transit services? I'll give you a little time to answer. This is a little bit tougher. If you chose B and D, you would be correct. In this case, we had a tie. In our community, we recognize that there are acute housing needs, both for those workers who make less than $16 an hour and for households needing to be near transit services. When we think of the continuum of housing and meeting the needs of our most vulnerable populations, we cannot leave behind those in our community experiencing homelessness. This year, we saw 2 more of our cities take up this issue and find ways to build bridges through public policy to create ordinances that allow shelter responses within their communities. The pandemic has shown a light on what housing vulnerability looks like for many in our county. UCS, Johnson County Government, United Way of Greater Kansas City, and community agencies have been working this year with the Kansas Housing Resource Center to connect federal funding supporting rental and utility assistance with those in need within our county. We are so thankful for all our partners, more than 50 organizations who actively participate in the Johnson County Continuum of Care for Homelessness, led by UCS. As we think about this issue, let me ask you this question. Approximately how many emergency shelter beds do you think Johnson County, with almost 610,000 residents, offers year-round for those experiencing homelessness? Would it be A, approximately 600 shelter beds, or equaling about 1% of our population? Maybe 300 beds, that equals about 0.5% of our population. 150 shelter beds, equaling about 0.25% of that population? Or 60 beds, which represents 0.1% of the population. I'll give you a moment to think about that and complete your survey. If you chose D, you would be correct. Today, we offer year-round, when we think about emergency shelter beds, only about 60 beds for our community of over 610,000 residents. This is an acute area of need in Johnson County that we are working with our community members to resolve. Issues that UCS focuses our attention on really have a thread of interconnectedness, weaving them together. We use the social determinants of health lens to shine a light on issues that impact not only our well-being, but ultimately even our life expectancy. Over the last 2 years, UCS has elevated its work around racial equity, inclusion, and belonging. Last year, the American Medical Association recognized that racism negatively impacts health outcomes among historically marginalized communities. The AMA noted that without systemic and structural level change, health inequities will continue to exist, and the overall health of the nation will suffer. UCS continues to work on elevating racial equity and inclusion in our public policy platform, our education and advocacy, and finding ways to work with our partners to develop the skills to make the necessary changes to create the community we can be. We believe at UCS our very future depends on creating an inclusive ecosystem for all our residents. Let me ask you this question. By 2066, Wichita State University's Center for Economic Development and Business Research says what percentage of Johnson County will be comprised of communities of color? 48%, 27%, maybe 40%, or 36%? I'll give you a moment to look that over and respond. If you chose A, 48%, you would be correct, which means by 2066, roughly half of our community in Johnson County will be diverse. Are we creating that ecosystem today to have a successful tomorrow? The final area I'd like to touch on this morning is recognizing the county and the 14 jurisdictions who participate in the Human Service Fund, and the county and the 10 jurisdictions who participate in the Alcohol Tax Fund. UCS has been providing grant review, recommendation, and evaluation services for the Human Service Fund for more than 30 years, and the Alcohol Tax Fund for more than 40 years. Participating jurisdictions recognize that health and human services are vital partners in helping to meet residents' needs. The human service programs address well-being, personal safety, and stability of Johnson County residents. For the year 2022, jurisdictions in UCF have launched a small grants program to inclusively support small nonprofits making a big difference in our community. The Alcohol Tax Fund supports efforts that address alcohol and substance use, education, prevention, and treatment programs serving Johnson County residents. This partnership between jurisdictions and agencies not only reduces the need for more costly interventions at public expense, such as law enforcement, courts, and code enforcement, but provides residents connections to local supports that help build their resiliency and progression to self-sufficiency. So a question for you. The Human Service Fund has awarded how much in grants since its inception in 1990? $6 million? $5 million, $4 million, or maybe $3 million? I'll give you a moment to answer that question. If you chose A, $6 million, you'd be correct. These dollars have gone into an ongoing relationship and support of programs and services that benefit residents in our community. So get ready for the next question. The Alcohol Tax Fund has awarded how much in grants since its inception in 1980? 10 million, maybe 20 million, 30 million, or 40 million? If you choose D, 40 million, you'll be correct. The Alcohol Tax Fund is actually through legislation, a statute that requires 30% of the per drink tax to be invested in those programs around education, prevention, treatment, and recovery. Thanks to the investment of our communities, many of those services have received ongoing funding throughout the years. All these efforts depend on all our willingness to connect and collaborate. For UCS, connecting with you is core to who we are. Let's hear from some of our audience members on what connectedness means to them.
Being connected as a community means that we're working together so that we all can thrive. No matter where you're at, who you are, where you come from, we can work together to build stronger, safer communities. It's equity for all.
Each link in the chain has a critical role in the success of the community. If we are all pulling in the same direction, we will reach our destination much faster and with greater force and impact.
On an individual level, we know that community connection is really the fabric of a life. It's friends and family that you can count on for support, meaningful and authentic connections to groups or individuals, and a place to just feel like you belong. In Johnson County, 12% of residents say that they don't have adequate social or emotional support. And while governments and agencies can't build relationships for people, they can create the conditions that support them, like walkable communities, diversity, safe spaces to gather, and community programming.
Thank you. We so appreciate participation from our partners as we focus on connectedness and resiliency. You know, our community members are all responding to questions that really tie back to today's theme, weaving a strong community. Right now, at this point in history, it feels like we find ourselves at a crossroads. We seem to be on a path that is divisive, isolating, and more combative than collaborative. As a matter of fact, just a few months ago, American Public Square featured a conversation with Robert Putnam and Shaylin Romney Garrett, authors of Upswing, How America Came Together a Century Ago and How We Can Do It Again, that focuses on improving the tone and quality of civil discourse. Their book plots our history, looking at times where we as a country have had high we periods and high I periods. The data, not unsurprisingly, indicates that we are in a very high I period right now. They postulate that solutions don't lay in addressing prevailing economic or political issues of the day, but really in looking at ourselves and how we are building connections with each other. In that lays our path back to focusing on the we in community and building the resiliency needed for our future. To help all of us understand the power of connecting, whether halfway around the world or in our very own neighborhood, we have Christy Boffman, UCS Director of Education and Planning, who prior to joining UCS spent more than a decade as an international humanitarian aid worker, and Catherine Evans, UCS Manager of Special Projects and a former community organizer, discussing how we build resiliency for the challenges of tomorrow through the connections we make today. Please join me in welcoming Catherine and Christy.
Thanks, Julie. Catherine, I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have about community connectedness. So a couple of months ago, I was scrolling through my social media and I came across a meme about prepping, like preparing for disaster. And it said that prepping is knowing the names and trades of your neighbors, sharing skills, tools, and resources, creating community gardens, basically creating community. And this struck me as something so profound because it's absolutely true. The idea that community connectedness could help us to survive and be resilient is such a powerful thought right now, especially thinking about our experiences with COVID-19.
Christy, I completely agree. When I think about my community of neighbors, I think it's a very powerful symbol for connectedness and resilience. So we moved into our home in 2015, and one of the things that drew us to the house was the front porch. From our front porch, we can see the entire block. So you can step outside and notice different patterns and activities and routines. And it's also just such a great place to connect with your nearest neighbors. And our neighborhood is a great mix of older adults and young couples and families with children. So at first these connections started pretty simply, a wave from across the street, or maybe strike up a conversation as we're taking our trash out for collection. And then over time, we started to get a little bit more curious about one another. We'd ask questions. What's your name? How old are your kids? How long have you lived in the neighborhood? And what do you like about it? So as we started to make these closer connections, we'd linger a little bit longer on the front steps, eventually finding our way onto the front porch and sitting down and forming these friendships. And when our daughter was born a year later, that connection became really important to me. I mean, it was my neighbor across the street who I would text at 2 o'clock in the morning for sleep tips. So those connections have been really powerful and important for us. And eventually, we started to have these neighbor dinners, these weekly dinners with the 6 houses on our block that have young children. And so every family would just cook their own food, and we'd go to someone's house and eat a meal together while our children played. And it became this very lovely tradition and way for us to stay connected to one another. And we kept that up really until March of last year, when the pandemic forced us apart. Fortunately for us, we still had the front porch. We could still step outside, we could still wave to each other, we could still call out and say, "How are you? Is there anything you need?" And as the reality of the pandemic really began to set in for us, we became a lifeline for one another. We brought each other food and medicine. We took each other's kids and dogs for walks to give each other a break and, a chance to work. And we were really there for each other. And I can't tell you how many nights we spent out on the front porch after our kids went to bed, just sitting in a circle and talking about all of our hopes and fears and dreams in this new reality.
When you think about that time period and your experience with your neighbors, what sticks out to you? Like what lessons do you take away from that experience?
Well, Christy, very quickly something became clear to me, which is that the network that we had formed in this community made us very resilient in the face of a crisis. I mean, we were preparing for a survival situation and we didn't even know it. And I think that if we had not established this connection before the pandemic, I don't really know how we could have responded to each other's needs for food and medicine and childcare and friendship. When our systems of childcare failed and our kids couldn't go to school, we were the ones who were homeschooling each other's kids on the front porch, taking shifts to make sure they were doing their lessons. When one of our neighbors lost their job and they couldn't earn income, we brought them groceries and made sure they had food for their table. When the political and social unrest following the murder of George Floyd led to these nightly protests in our neighborhood, we had a group text that we would check in with each other and just make sure that we felt safe and encouraged. So I think the lesson for me here, Christy, is that we need systems that are resilient to disruption. And I can't think of anything that is more resilient than a group of people who know each other and care about each other and want one another to be healthy and safe.
Your neighborhood was prepping all along.
Definitely.
So when you and I first started talking about community connectedness, I started really thinking about, how community forms in different ways and for different reasons. And I started thinking honestly about my community of humanitarian aid workers. As Julie said in her introduction, I spent over a decade as a humanitarian aid worker. And just kind of naturally, humanitarian aid workers follow the need that comes after a disaster or during a conflict. And so we tend to live and work in dangerous, challenging contexts. But no matter where I went, no matter what country I was living in, I always had a community of aid workers. And that community was so vital in terms of meeting the needs of the people and the communities where we were working, but also in terms of me and my safety, right, and my own well-being. One example I can think of is when I was living in Darfur, so western part of Sudan, in a town called Niala. And at the time, I was working for UN peacekeeping, but there was still quite a bit of conflict going on. And for me in Neala, every day began and ended with my community. So first thing that we did every morning was meet up for a security briefing. And that briefing would cover everything from any areas that might be unsafe to if there had been any fighting or if anybody had been displaced. It might cover carjackings or hijackings. You know, it could be scary, but it also was a moment for us to really center ourselves in our mission and the work that we were doing. It was a chance for us to be able to connect with each other and offer resources and ask for help, to see how people were doing, just check in on one another. It was that moment where we could grab a coffee and have a conversation and just, you know, touch base before we all went out to do whatever the day would hold for us. At night, my night ended with community. We had a nightly radio check. Every aid worker in Neala would have a radio and a unique call sign. And so you in peacekeeping would call everybody's call sign at the end of the day. And so you would wait. It took about a half an hour. And so you would just listen and wait for your call sign. And you got to know people's responses and listen for their voices, listening for the people in our community. And you knew they were listening for you too. It was just another way to connect at the end of the day and make sure that everyone had made it home okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a really important thing to have in a crisis situation. So I'm so glad that you had that. And what you're saying reminds me of a book that Julie actually referenced earlier. There's a book called The Upswing by Robert Putnam and Shaylin Romney Garrett. And in this book, they talk about how the United States has become demonstrably, even measurably more divided over time. And what they're seeing in their research is that we have become more of an I society than a we society. But their analysis also shows that the solution lies not in economic systems, not in political systems, but in strong, resilient social networks. And I think what's apparent from both of our stories, Christy, is that when so many of the systems that we've come to rely on fail, what remains is our connection to one another.
You know, thinking about the pandemic, I think it's really important for us to note that not everybody was impacted in the same way by COVID-19. You know, some people's lives were devastated by the health and financial consequences of the pandemic, while some people moved through COVID-19, you know, basically unscathed. And it makes me think that maybe if at the beginning of the pandemic we had thought about COVID-19 not as kind of this great equalizer, you know, something we were all going through together in the same way, if we had recognized that actually some folks, particularly people of color, are more vulnerable and require stronger social networks to prevent harm. I think if we want to build those networks, we really have to commit ourselves to breaking down barriers to health and, you know, addressing gaps that we have related to kind of racial inequities, socioeconomical inequities, or political divides. And when I think about those kinds of things, I think that is why it is so important that UCS's commitment to health equity and racial equity is so vital in this particular moment.
I think what we've begun to notice at UCS is how important these connections are for the work that we do, right? Our vision at UCS is that everyone would have the opportunity to contribute to the health and well-being of their community. And when we think about the approaches we take, there's really not a single issue that we've worked on that hasn't required us to bring in community partners and bring in multiple voices to the table. So these concepts, this theme of community connectedness, it's really at the heart of what UCS does and who UCS is. I mean, think about the work that we've done on safe, stable, and attainable housing, and how important connection is for that to be a reality. You can't connect with your neighbors if you're constantly having to move because the cost of housing is too high, or if you just don't feel like you belong in your community. And so it's really hard to build that resilience if you're always having to move. And I think when I think about our housing study and the recommendations that we put out, it's clear to me that so many of the recommendations really require us to get out and talk to each other and build those relationships in order for us to be successful in addressing this housing issue. So I think it's really come to the forefront for us.
Absolutely. I think my takeaway from our conversation is that, yes, absolutely, the challenges that we face right now are huge and they're complex, but I believe very deeply that small actions can ultimately have a big difference. You know, we don't all have a front porch, we don't all show up every day for a security briefing to, be in touch with folks, but we do all have an opportunity to connect with people who are closest in proximity to us. You shared a quote with me that said that social change moves at the speed of relationships and relationships move at the speed of trust. And yeah, it takes time to build a relationship that is there for you in a crisis like the pandemic. But I think that we all have something that we can do in terms of connecting. So my call to action for anybody joining us today would be find a way to make a connection. Maybe you're walking your dog and you see a neighbor, or you're at the playground watching your kids and you see a parent. Make a connection, say hi, share your name, share a story, find something that's meaningful. You have to have faith that even this small act can potentially start a relationship that would change the world.
Connectedness helps build a resilient community by setting the expectation that we are all in this together, and together, all people groups share in our failures and successes that create our path to a stronger, more inclusive community and tomorrow.
Connectedness helps build resiliency if we truly embrace the concept of we are one. We are so much stronger with diversity and inclusiveness. Again, not leaving one person behind.
We can't do this alone. Whether it's the pandemic, whether it's homelessness, housing issues, whether it's sustainability, we have to coordinate with each other. We have to cooperate with each other. We can learn from each other.
When we're connected, we care about each other's quality of life and are willing to listen, reflect, and take actions that will result in long-term solutions for our community.
It is through the interconnected work of many that our communities have been strengthened and united during challenging times. Which brings us to our annual UCS Human Service Awards. These awards pay tribute to individuals and organizations that contribute to and share responsibility for the common good, and in doing so, leave a positive impact on our entire county. My name is Kate Allen, UCS board member and Vice President for Advancement at Johnson County Community College. Today, I have the privilege of presenting the UCS Citizen of the Year Award. The award recognizes an individual who has provided lasting contributions that enhance the well-being of Johnson County residents. This award is presented to Mina Foster, Director of Housing Services with the Salvation Army. For more than 16 years, Mina has worked with families and individuals experiencing homelessness, bringing a unique perspective of care and commitment to serving vulnerable populations. Through her work, she has left a lasting impact on our community and in the lives of countless individuals she has served and mentored along the way. Mina's experience and years of service are a true testament to the impact that can be made when we treat each other with dignity and respect, no matter the differences between us, the neighborhoods we live in, or the circles we come from. Let's learn more about Mina's work.
We work with families that are experiencing homelessness. We have a shelter and a transitional housing program. And so we work with those Johnson County families. Our goal is to provide basic needs, keep families together during that crisis time of their life so they can get back up on their feet and move out into community housing again. When we are speaking with people having difficult circumstances, we need to remember they're a person first and what they're going through is second. So for persons experiencing homelessness, we want to remember those are our brothers and sisters, those are our Johnson Countyans, and they are in need. That makes it an us situation rather than an us and them situation. We're in this together.
She is such an important person in our community. Johnson County is Mina's home. She loves it here, she loves the people here, and she will do anything that she can to make it a place for everybody.
I would describe Mina as a ruthless advocate and a resource for those in need. The Johnson County Family Lodge has seen tremendous success, even through the pandemic. And right now, the outcomes that mine is looking at is over a 90% housing placement or relevant program placement for those that have been housed since summer of 2020. And so I think that outcome in and of itself speaks to her leadership and her team's dedication to serving those experiencing homelessness.
This whole ride with the continuum of care has been pretty exciting, and I've enjoyed every second of it because I continue to learn. I still continue to learn and feel like I sit at the table with greatness every time I go to a COC meeting.
Mine is not afraid to take on big problems. She's not afraid to ask hard questions and to really help guide our county, our continuum of care, and our agencies towards solutions. She is always at the table. If there is a committee, an advisory group, anything that she can contribute, she'll be there on the front line serving to make Johnson County the best place it can possibly be.
Mine single-handedly took on the Emergency Solutions Grant for hotel motel vouchers this spring, and she was able to help a number of individuals get placed in a hotel for temporary housing, but also providing case management support and love to get them into the next step of their journey to be housed and connected to better resources in the community.
Johnson County doesn't really have many weak links, if there are any. It's because we seek to strengthen up our most vulnerable populations with dignity, support, and respect so that they too can feel like a contributing part of their community, in their neighborhood.
Congratulations to our UCS 2021 Citizen of the Year Award winner, Mina Foster. Congratulations.
Thank you. Wow. I don't know how I'm going to do this and not cry. Thank you. When they did the video, you heard me say that I haven't really ever done anything super spectacular in my life. However, I've worked with spectacular teams of people, smart, passionate people. And so this isn't just my award, this is our award for all of us service providers who come in. We show up every single day, and I'm honored to receive this. But this is for all of us, so thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dave White. I'm a UCS board member and an attorney with the Fuller & Wickens Law Firm. I'm honored to present this year's Distinguished Public Service Award, recognizing outstanding public service by a government official who has advanced human services to improve the quality of life for Johnson County citizens. The recipient of this year's award is Mayor Carl Gerlach of Overland Park. He has served as the mayor for 4 consecutive terms, beginning in 2005, and has remained active throughout the community, serving on numerous boards, including Advent Health Shawnee Mission, the Johnson County Education Research Triangle, and the Mid-America Technology, Inc., along with several other committees and boards for the city of Overland Park. Mayor Gerlach's commitment to promote understanding, tolerance, and acceptance of religious and cultural diversity has helped bridge divides and break down barriers throughout the greater metropolitan area. Let's look at the unifying role Mayor Gerlach has played in the Overland Park community and beyond.
My dedication to public service really came from myself growing up as an Eagle Scout and learning the ways Scouts take care of others, and from my grandmother, who really taught me to give back to the community, to help others that needed a little bit extra, and that's really where my impetus came from.
I've loved watching Mayor Gerlach and his leadership. I have the privilege of being his pastor as well. But watching him in the community and focusing on having a vision for Overland Park that will lead us forward into the future. I've seen that when it comes to making sure that we're a diverse community. I've seen that when it comes to welcoming people of different faiths. He's been really serious about wanting to make sure that Overland Park is a place, a community for everyone, and I love that about him.
What I was looking really to accomplish was to keep the city as strong, as quality of life as it had been, and maybe even to improve on it. It had been a greenfield development city, where new development always happened in the greenfield areas. And I knew that I wanted to keep that going, but at the same time, I wanted to redevelop. MedCap is the spine of the city, and there were a lot of older buildings, so we needed to do redevelopment and development at the same time. I had talked to a number of professors who said, well, that's impossible. The city has to focus on either redevelopment or new development. You can't do both. So hopefully I proved them wrong.
I think you can see the fruits of his leadership in so many different ways. I think we see it in what's happened in downtown Overland Park and the revival of downtown Overland Park. I think the mayor and the city council work together, but the mayor plays a critical role in that. I think the work on looking at OP Forward, or looking at the forward direction of the city, and the massive work that went into the strategic plan for the future, and an emphasis again on including everyone, on creating a city that is one of the great livable cities in the United States. There are just a host of ways in which his persona, his vision are reflected in the best things about Overland Park today.
This is an individual who truly is incredibly humble and who truly does not necessarily work for his own personal satisfaction. He has provided and continued the legacy of Overland Park through some difficult and challenging events and years. And I was very happy that his peers and those in the community that serve the people that he cares the most about wanted to recognize him for his years of leadership and contribution. Well done, Carl, well done. You deserve this.
Congratulations on receiving this award, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. I am very honored today to receive this award. It's an award that just for being myself, and that's why it means so much to me. When I look back on the list of names that have received this award in the past, I am very honored. It's a very strong list of names. And I'd really like to say thanks to United Community Services because of Julie and all that they've done for the community. They are the fabric that has pulled this community together during tough times and during good times. So I want to say thank you to UCS.
Congratulations, Mayor Gerlach, on your well-deserved honor. I'm Tara Eberlein, UCS board member and partner with Folston Law Firm. Hello. This morning, I'm pleased to present the Award for Excellence in Community Service. This award recognizes an organization or partnership that has significantly improved the lives of Johnson County residents by working collaboratively, ensuring services are effective, accessible, and inclusive, and demonstrating positive outcomes and accountability. This year's award goes to the collaborative partnership of InCircle, Johnson County Community College Continuing Education, Kansas City Community College, and Johnson County Department of Corrections through their work in the College of Trades program. This collaboration of network weavers helps clients of Johnson County Corrections identify their passions and gain skills that lead to career opportunities to end the cycle of incarceration, stabilize families, and reduce recidivism. Since its inception, the College of Trades program has helped over 300 people rejoin their communities as productive citizens. Let's take a moment to learn more about these efforts.
The College of Trades is important because it helps my neighbors relaunch stably into my community. Let's face it, our society tends to say that once somebody's released from corrections, that they've been rehabilitated, but they still have a greater difficulty finding jobs.
Our College of Trade is really successful only because we have great community partners. If it wasn't for InCircle and Johnson County Community College and Kansas City, Kansas Community College and a lot of employers out there willing to hire these clients, we wouldn't be where we're at today. Each one of us plays a vital role in making this a success.
We're not all going to reinvent the wheel. We're not all going to do things in silos. We really want to get the full benefit of a community partnership like this, leaning on the agencies that are already doing things that we can utilize to help our clients.
My vision, and I believe every one of our partners' visions, is that we will find ways to expand the programs and the offerings so that anyone who's been impacted by the criminal justice system has a resource, an advocate, and an avenue towards stable employment and a career that they can advance in.
and a way for them to have a good income and have a healthy life.
Each partner brings something to the table. When Lee and I first got together, he connected me with some of his volunteers who have resources across the community. I've got lots of resources at Johnson County Community College. Honestly, all of our resources just match together.
What we're doing right now is we've started our very first College of Trades program, our Life Skills program, offered through Johnson County Community College. So now we have students that are not at the correctional center, but are on probation or parole, and they're able to enroll in the classes and get into a welding training or construction or customer service. And in doing so, they too are able to start following that new pathway towards success.
I feel like this has made a difference. It's great to watch these individuals evolve and then get the job.
Another thing I love is when employers call us and tell us how awesome these clients are doing. It makes us really feel good that they're utilizing the skills that they've learned, and the employers are grateful that they're there and doing the job.
At this time, I'd like to invite representatives from InCircle, Johnson County Department of Corrections, and Johnson County Community College to come receive their award.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, United Community Services. And I was asked to come up and be the one that would receive this, and it's because I believe I can speak for all of us the value of this partnership, that we are truly better together in what we do. I've been here before and been a part of a group who have received a community service award. And I realize that part of the power in our community comes when we all join together to do good work. So I appreciate the opportunity to share our story and for it to be heard. I appreciate the opportunity to share the stage with so many people who have been a part of making this partnership work. And if we tried to fill this stage with everybody, the cameras would have to push way back. So we're just appreciative of the opportunity to be here and to say thank you.
I am Joe Connor, UCS board member and Assistant County Manager for the Johnson County government. It is with great honor that I present today's final award, the Karen Wolfcole Bridge Spanner Award. This honor is awarded to a community advocate who recognizes the complex issues that affect the quality of life in our community and exemplifies commitment and leadership. The Karen Wolfcole Bridge Spanner Award is presented to Ed Eilert, Chairman of the Johnson County Board of Commissioners. A longtime Johnson County resident and advocate, Ed has dedicated his life to serving others and supporting his community in his roles ranging from teacher to financial consultant to longtime public servant. Prior to his 12 years as chairman, he served as a county commissioner, City of Overland Park council member, and 24 years as mayor of Overland Park. Chairman Eilert has maintained an unwavering commitment to addressing the challenges of the county, not only for those who reside here today, but for future generations. UCS is proud to recognize Chairman Eilert with this award.
It was in, mid-70s. I happened to be chairman of the board of my church congregation. And there was a city decision about a fire station that was going up across the street. And the congregation had some concerns about it. So I represented the congregation before the Planning Commission and the City Council and got to know some of the council members and kind of kept it in my mind that if the opportunity presented itself, that's something I might want to do. So that's when it all started.
He was on the Overland Park City Council for 4 years and then ran for mayor and was mayor for 24 years during the 80s and the 90s. And then he ran for county commission and did that and then ran for county chair. He's been involved in both of the pivotal governments in the county.
I think he is the best person, best politician to manage what we call the gap. The gap is trying to find that political solution that is both administratively feasible and politically acceptable. And to thread that needle is no easy task. And to do it in a way that really kind of looks for the long term, not for just this year or for the next election, but really for the future, foreseeable future for kids and grandkids. And that really is a rarity in my viewpoint.
As mayor of Overland Park during the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of growth took place. I remember dedicating the Deanna Rose Farmstead. We also bought 300 acres for the Overland Park Arboretum, which has been expanded. Then one of the bigger projects we worked on over a period of about 10 years and finally brought to completion was the Overland Park Convention Center and the Sheraton Hotel.
His discipline to the basics and how important it was that we have low crime, that we have plenty of roads, that we have parks, that discipline kept us from going in different directions with the taxpayers' dollars, and he certainly played a major role in that.
As I look back on those activities, I hope they brought benefit to the members of our community, and I hope that they will continue to provide that benefit in the future.
Having a person who is a humble, dedicated public servant that is dedicated to the Athenian oath to leave someplace better than they found it really is remarkable. He's one of the most remarkable public servants I've had a chance to work with.
I know of no bigger heart than Ed Eilert's for community service, for building community, for helping people have successful families and successful businesses. I don't know of anyone right now that I would say has a bigger heart than Ed Eilert.
It is my honor to present this award to Chairman Ed Eilert.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. And I want to say a special thank you to Julie and the Board of Directors of UCS for this special honor. Having known Karen and worked with Karen for many, many years, and understanding her positive impact on our community, this award with her name on it is very, very meaningful to me. Karen was a great leader for our community. She had a positive impact in many, many ways, and her pathway is one that all of us could follow. So thank you very much. I appreciate this. It is my honor to accept this award. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky Yoakum, 2022 UCS Board Chair and City Manager for the City of Lenexa. Congratulations to all our award recipients. Their work has truly helped us weave a strong community. As we close our program this morning, please remember that the work of UCS is really the work of all of us together. To ensure UCS can continue to be the place to come plan, collaborate, and envision a better tomorrow, we ask for your support today. If you haven't had a chance to make your gift to UCS yet this year, please take a moment to do so now. There is a link to donate in the chat and also in your event invitation and in your program. Your generosity each year allows UCS to continue its work in our community. Thank you for taking time this morning to celebrate another year of collaboration and partnership.